Let me start the record, sorry. There we go. There we go.
Okay, so hi, my name is Gina, and I was in the Bravo cohort of 2019. And now I am a DevOps engineer, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to beat burnout. So let's see if I can share my screen. Okay. And I'm gonna move you guys. Okay. So hopefully we will learn some tricks today to beat burnout so you don't end up like this poor soul. First of all, is it burnout or is it life? It's no secret that life has been a little tough these last couple of years, or pretty much the entire world. So how can you tell if you're feeling burned out or if you're just depressed or anxious? Because they tend to present pretty similarly. These questions on the right are some things that you can ask yourself. And over time, the more that you, unfortunately, if you start to experience the burnout symptoms, you'll start to be able to tell that that's different from maybe the way that other pressures in your life manifest. For me personally, I'm really that third bullet point when I start to get easily frustrated or annoyed by things that didn't used to bother me. It's like when a challenge feels more frustrating than it does exciting or like a learning experience, then I can tell I'm starting to get burned out. What do we do about it? Well, you have to stop saying yes to everything. And I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people, but it has to be done if you are going to not burn out. So what you're going to do is when obligations come your way or opportunities or what have you, you're going to drop them into one of these 4 categories and then start cutting things from number 4 up. And a few things to point out. Number 1, things you must do to literally stay alive are not, oh, I have to go to Aunt Susan's 50th or mom will kill me. No, I'm talking things like pay your bills, actually sleep, things that you have to do, eat healthy food, just things that you actually have to do to physically live. Any people pleasers in the room. Any of you, you're already probably thinking, if you can switch 2 and 3 around, you can't. Don't do that. I know you want to because I want to, but it will make you resentful. It will make you frustrated, and you'll be less likely to reach out to people for help when you actually need it. So make sure that you're prioritizing those things that bring you joy, especially when you start to feel like maybe you're burning out a little bit. Let's talk about rest and how rest can be productive. So a lot of the time when you think about rest, it's taking a break from doing the things that are productive, but really rest is productive in itself. You've probably experienced this where you've been working on something for a long time, especially if it's really reading heavy, and then you're just staring at your screen and your brain decides it's done processing information. And you can read the words, but there's no meaning coming in. So at that point, you could sit there and do the productive thing and stare at your screen for 3 hours and get nothing out of it. Or you can rest for an hour, come back, and actually process information for another hour. So in that sense, rest can actually be more helpful and can make you more productive in the long run. So another thing to keep in mind with rest is that it can look different ways for different people. Sometimes you actually need to go lay down and sleep. Sometimes rest can be doing a hobby, something that you love, playing video games. I'm sure some of you have had parents that didn't think video games were a good use of your time, but I'm here to tell you they really can be, especially if you're frustrated, go hit something with a bat in a game, come back, tackle it fresh. Rest can also be working out or taking a whole day to yourself, spa day. On the flip side of that, sometimes taking that rest can be more stressful because sometimes when you're taking that time for yourself, in the back of your mind, you're beating yourself up or you're thinking, oh, I should be doing something else. And I had that experience actually in grad school where I would read for fun, but I was in grad school for English. And people started picking at me and saying, oh, well, in this time that you're reading, couldn't you be reading something, for extra reading for class or looking something up? And so my safe place of books I read for fun became stressful, and I'd get anxious every time I would try to open a book. So when that starts to happen, what else can you do? So I like to think of this as micro self-care, which are bite-sized acts of cheer that you can enjoy while you're doing those other things that you have to do. So things like having a fun mug that you use, or eating a snack that makes you really happy while you're doing your work. Just little things that work in connection with the work that you absolutely have to get done, but make you smile and maybe take a little bit of pressure off deep in your soul. So I'd like everyone to take a second and think about some things in your own life that could fall into this category. Maybe you're already doing them. Maybe there are things that now that it's been pointed out, you're going to start doing. And if anyone wants to share or put theirs in the chat, I'm going to give you guys a minute here. Look at the whole big picture. Okay, awesome. Coming in the chat. Play with the dog is a great one. Daniel Code, yes. Animals, music, always good. Yep. Oh, peppermint oil, yes. Oh, I like that one, Vanessa. Something you can pick up and put down quickly. I have I don't know if you'll be able to see it with the blur, but I have a squishy cat that my dad just got me. Puppies as coworkers, yeah, pets are awesome. All right, feel free to keep those coming as you think of them. And all right, so what if you do start feeling burned out? The important thing is to keep in mind that it's not going to last forever, even if you take some time off and you think, okay, it should be gone by now. Maybe it's not necessarily a break that you need, it's a win. I find that helps me more, honestly, than days off, is getting, if I'm stuck on something at work, maybe getting a win in my personal project and figuring something out. Or if one ticket is really stumping me, asking for help, getting a nudge in the right direction and getting unstuck, and just having somewhere else to go is really helpful. So keep that in mind as well as another potential avenue. If you can, quit studying, focus on some hobbies, rest, handle business in other areas of your life that are maybe putting pressure on you in the background. And then this last one, make a small change or two. I did not have pink hair when I started at Learn, but I've been changing my hair pretty frequently. That's a little something that just brings me joy, keeps things fresh. And notice I say make a small change or two. So I'm going to tell you something that I didn't tell the last cohort when I gave this talk, because I was still in the middle of it and I didn't know how it was going to play out. So these are the lessons I learned from my cautionary tale. And what happened was I was feeling pretty burned out with work and life. Probably some of that was COVID related, being stuck inside for a big chunk of the last 2 years. And so I decided that I was going to make 2 major life changes, one right after the other. So first thing was I moved across the country. And second thing was that I changed jobs from my very first job in tech, to now my second job in tech. And making those decisions on top of each other was very overwhelming and stressful, and what I had kind of thought was going to be a fun adventure ended up just being overwhelming. And I stopped feeling burned out, but I kind of had new problems now that were arguably worse. So what I realized in taking the new job, first of all, was it was a much smaller company. It was very different than the company I was at before. And part of also being across the country was I was no longer near my support system and my friends. And, I had my husband with me, but I didn't have like our friends who I'd been working with. And so I felt lonely and didn't have the same any consistency to fall back on, really. So the good news is I'm now back in San Diego and returning to my previous job on September 6th, which also happens to be my birthday. So sigh of relief, good things, good changes. But what I learned from that experience is that if you, and I'm not saying you shouldn't make decisions from a place of burnout. If you hate your job and you realize you're just burned out and you want a whole new career, maybe that's why some of you are at Learn, and that can be a great thing. But what I learned is that making decisions from a place of burnout and thinking you need to change everything at once can be dangerous, and it doesn't take into account that sometimes those things that you're used to provide consistency and security, even if they're also burning you out in the moment. And the other thing I learned was the difference between needing a break and needing a win. Part of it was just that I'd been grinding at my job and feeling like I wasn't learning. And then when I took the new job, I realized how much I was actually learning without even noticing. So just a few things to keep in mind. Hopefully some of you can learn from my mistakes. And if you do get burned out, just make some better decisions than I did. So now what I want to do that worked, I feel like really well last time, was just to ask you guys about your experiences with burnout, whether you've experienced them at a job or just a life situation prior to this, or if you've even been feeling a little burned out at Learn at all, how you dealt with it, and just hear from you guys.
So my previous job, I didn't handle burnout very well. I stuck with it for 7 years, even though after the third year I hated it, but it paid a stupid amount of money for what little I did. So I stuck it out for that reason alone. For Learn, I have been burnt out because it's more like I'm like getting mad that maybe I'm not getting something and I'm getting burnt out by that. And I just fixed it by going to bed. I woke up, felt refreshed. And I was like, okay, I can do this again. But that's me.
I feel like I deal with burnout all the time. The thing is, I get really enthusiastic about a new job and I want to do everything there. And then eventually when I learn everything and I become like the go-to person, I get overwhelmed with work. The way I cope with it, honestly, just having good coworkers to be able to chit chat with. I'm lucky enough that I have enough hobbies to keep myself entertained and I don't make work my life.
I ran into something fairly similar where, I essentially made work my life because it also kind of blurred with a hobby I had, and that I found was starting to actually ruin that hobby. So what I ended up doing was just kind of completely trying to separate those things as much as I could, to the extent that I actually even had like separate workstations and just really tried to separate the two things as much as I could with, mild success.
I'll talk. Definitely burnout at Learn is real. Everybody knows I've got 2 young kids, and they're used to me doing all of the things outside of school. So doing this, it's just been really intense. And I kept trying to like stay up late and practice and learn things. And then I, like Cody, I had a day where my kids went to bed at an actual reasonable time and then actually let me sleep in the morning. And I spent the entire day feeling like I was on drugs. And I realized, I was like, oh, I just need sleep. I just need to sleep because I'm not learning anything if I'm coming into class so tired. Yeah, so I have been trying to prioritize sleep, and we're trying to sort out some like after school stuff for the kids that we can kind of get set so that I'm sure, I don't know how many people noticed my two little visitors that were joining yesterday from about 3:30 onward. So
I'll go next. I usually wake up in the morning and I'm like pretty much crawling to the bathroom because my brain is like, no, not today. But and it doesn't help that I am like a perfectionist and I evaluate myself like all the time. So the burnout is 100% more real. And I just feel like what helps me is I try to make promises for myself. So every day after I get out of school, I promised myself that I would stop coding no matter what at 10 p.m. I put everything down, close the computer. And sometimes, like Cody, I have to force myself to sleep because I feel like the computer is looking at me like, what are you doing right now? So usually take a bath, or on the weekends, I like to go skating or get up in the weekend and like just get out early so I don't just jump straight on my computer. And then when I come back, I feel a lot better. But that's just me. But yeah.
I guess for me, doing something physical is really important after, because sitting at the desk for a long time, it's easy. I think it's easy for me to avoid burnout because I kind of have to leave my house right after 5. So I shut the computer, and if I want to do any work on this, it has to be after like 9 o'clock. So that helps me a lot. Just if I'm gonna work on anything more, I do it several hours after, and after I do something physical, because that kind of resets me in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all great. I'm hearing some trends, sleep being a very important one. I definitely have trouble sleeping. You know, my brain goes a mile a minute at night. I'm sure that happens to a lot of folks. So I got a weighted blanket and that helped me a lot. It's really warm though. So if you are a hot sleeper, maybe not recommended, but yeah, if you can, any tricks, anything you can do to help yourself sleep. The melatonin gummies work for some people. For me, they just make me so thirsty and then I drink and I have to go to the bathroom. So that doesn't work at all. But if you know, the eye thing, if you like it dark, just give yourself all the leg ups that you possibly can. Perfectionists, folks wanting to be the best and do their best all the time. If anyone's considering going into DevOps, there's a book called The Phoenix Project. And there's a character named Brent who is the go-to guy. Everyone in every department goes to Brent for everything. And it's cool being that go-to person, but it does put a ton of pressure on you, as I think some of you who have done that in the past understand. So just make sure that you're safeguarding your time. And if you are going to be that person, again, figure out a way to say no to some things or to gently push back or ask for help prioritizing. Plan ahead so that you can be the go-to person, but also have space for yourself when you need to. Yeah. So those things, very important. Also, someone else mentioned physical separation, you know, a place for your hobby and a place for your work. I think that was Holden. That was really, really good. I try and do the same thing, or I'll have like for personal projects versus work things, we use VS Code at work. So I like to do my personal projects in another IDE called Atom. Just, you know, it's still dark mode, but it's a different color scheme. And that even that tiny shift sometimes helps my brain compartmentalize the different things. So that's an option. Or at the end of my work day, I make sure I get dressed for work every day. Not saying you have to, PJs are wonderful, but that's another way that I create separation in my brain when working from home, so that I'm dressed for work and then comfy sweats after work.
Charlene's going to absolutely kill me, but my separation of work versus because I live in a small place, and I work in the in my sort of living room, so I put on slippers when I start work. I know that Charlene's but that's just that kind of separation of okay, now I'm at work, when I take them off, I am no longer at work. I can sit at the same desk, but that's how my brain works.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever works for you.
I really like.
Break Shannon's heart.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I really like a point you made about winning, making sure you get a win in there. I had a really hard time the second half of the Learn cohort when I was going through it. I didn't get almost any wins. Like once we hit week 6, I didn't have any wins through the rest of the cohort. And when I finally got to my internship and I had a major breakthrough win, like all of the knowledge I had been accruing that whole time finally like collapsed into place, and I understood all of it. And so it was like that win really kind of like unlocked like all the studying and everything I had done, and so that I could actually use it instead of just being confused by it all the time. And I think part of it was that because I just wasn't able to finalize anything on my own, nothing actually really stuck the way it was supposed to. And that win kind of showed me like, I do know what's happening and I can organize everything correctly. And that was a really big deal for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think a lot of us can relate and will relate to that feeling of, just wondering when it's going to click and going long stretches and starting to get nervous when you go long stretches without feeling like things are clicking. Back when Learn was in a physical building, after I graduated, I stuck around and just kind of worked from that same space to kind of absorb more knowledge. And students would stop me in the kitchen and everything, and he's like, man, how long did it take you to get React props? Or how long did it take you to get this Ruby concept? When did it click for you? And I'm going to call myself out here because for some of those things, they didn't click until after Learn ended. And that was at the time that I was going through it, my worst nightmare was graduating without feeling like I'd actually learned all of the things that we were taught, and feeling like that made me a failure. But it will come, even if it comes after. You're going to keep learning. You're going to keep practicing afterwards. You can go back, and I'm sure your teachers will agree that you can hit them up later. You can use the Learn Slack. I did that too, to ask questions of folks who have moved on and graduated, folks who are going through it now who maybe are just stronger in certain areas and you're stronger than them in certain areas. Use all of those resources, but don't put undue pressure on yourself to feel like, if I don't learn this by the end of week 12, that's it, I'll never get it. You will, and it's okay not to get it by that deadline.
That's awesome. Thank you, Gina. Again, I really appreciate your time coming in and your willingness to help us out with this really important topic. So, we'll see you again, hopefully. If you don't mind me mithering you with the next cohort. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, everybody. I will put let me get a link to my LinkedIn if you want to keep in touch, or I'm still in the Learn Slack. And yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.